Hello and welcome to this ITAM Review session. IBM Cloud Paks. I've been told I need them, but do I? Really? I'm Adam Ramsey and I head up the pre-sales business for Origina. And that follows 17 years in IBM, where latterly I was a software client architect in the IBM Cloud business. And everyone's role was to advocate for Cloud Paks. Origina is an industry-leading global third-party support provider for IBM software. So I'm going to start with a little history as to the evolving strategy of IBM that leads us to where we are today. So the cloud marketplace becomes very competitive, but more crucially it's commodity driven. And new entrants into the marketplace play a different game with no legacy baggage in tow. And IBM at the time was challenged by a commitment to the market to deliver a certain level of EPS and profitability by 2015, which led to reduced investment in the traditional IBM portfolio, and that saw customers' heads turned by the competition and these new upcoming cloud providers. So the ensuing growth by acquisition strategy that IBM had kind of struggled to deliver against some of those roadmap targets. Even the software acquisition of 2013 had mixed results in the cloud marketplace. So IBM needed to change tacks really, and saw that there was more opportunity, instead of fighting for a competitive commodity market in the cloud, to go after something different and span across all clouds. And so IBM set about a new strategy, one that would see them embrace openness and appeal to the new order of DevOps-inspired delivery and protect their traditional enterprise software by enabling a freedom of choice of which cloud vendor to go to and to accelerate the deployment of enterprise software into those clouds. And this saw the dawn of the hybrid cloud market. And to support that endeavour, IBM needed more open tools to underpin the strategy, but tools that were open but yet under their control. So this led to the record-breaking $34 billion acquisition of Red Hat. And as a result of that, when you speak to an IBMer, the answer to all life's questions is an IBM Cloud Pak, because IBM has placed all its chips on hybrid cloud. It's restructured its business around being a purely software business for the hybrid cloud enterprise. And Cloud Paks are the delivery vehicle for their middleware in that environment, which is underpinned by a fabric provided by Red Hat. So this strategy simply has to succeed because they've invested everything into it. So what are IBM Cloud Paks? Probably seen this slide many times before if you're dealing with IBM, and you'll see that there are several different Cloud Paks. Cloud Pak for apps, data, integration, automation, security, and then one for multi-cloud management. But one thing there will be is no more Cloud Paks. As far as I'm aware, these will be the only ones that will be available. But these are really a bundling of capability in the enterprise space. And the objective here, when they say around hybrid openness, that you could put this workload anywhere you wanted to, and then move this workload around. Because, hey, it's all based on Kubernetes. So all this is using containers. So moving to container strategy and using Kubernetes. So you could move it from one Kubernetes infrastructure to another Kubernetes infrastructure. And yes, well, yeah, you kind of could, so long as that Kubernetes is Red Hat Openshit, because all of this is underpinned by Red Hat Openshit. Every one of these Cloud Paks requires Red Hat Openshit to run. So yes, you can run in multiple clouds and a hybrid cloud. That means you need to run Openshit in your data center. It means you need to run Openshit in the clouds where you're going to put your workload. And if you are using multiple clouds, so perhaps private cloud and one or two cloud vendors, then you might consider something like multi-cloud management to give you an orchestration and administration layer over the top of all those clouds. When we dig into them a little bit more, you can see all the enterprise software, lots of stuff you've heard of and probably already own, bundled into these Cloud Paks. So you can deploy the Cloud Pak as one or any of these things. And one of the changes to the license metrics that's quite interesting here is if you had perhaps the concept of a bundle before, or an SO or an ELA or a catalog type deal, once you deployed any capability, it was then deployed. So if you deployed something as IBM API Connect, some asset, then it was always an asset of IBM API Connect and it could never be anything else. And if you then took that out of service, you had that sitting as shelfware. That's changed with the Cloud Pak. So within a Cloud Pak, you can return the asset so long as it's within the bundle. So if you look at the Cloud Pak for integration, and that's the example I'm going to continue with through this presentation, I could choose to deploy 100 PVUs of IBM API Connect. Now if that requirement, the business requirement or business drivers change, and I now only need 50 PVUs of IBM API Connect, I might want to use return 50 PVUs to the pool and then deploy those 50 PVUs as IBM data power. And I can do that within the Cloud Pak. So I can flex up and down within my entitlements. So if I've got 100 PVUs of IBM Cloud Pak for integration, I can split those across all the product in that bundle in any mix or ratio. But wait, there are changes. The Cloud Paks came out in 2019 and we've already lost one. We've lost the Cloud Pak for applications, which was the runtime environment, provided you with all the runtimes, including an unrestricted license to Red Hat Openshit. And that has now been replaced by WebSphere Hybrid Edition. And the reason for that is actually to do with the Openshit platform itself having an embedded entitlement. So with that one gone, we're left with the other 5, and they all come with an entitlement to use Openshit to run the Cloud Pak. But the Cloud Pak for applications, you could use it without any restriction. So let's move forward and look at what is an IBM Cloud Pak. You know, what makes it up? So we hear this talk about packs and bundles and things like that. And so to try and distill it down, we can think of it as perhaps 2 things. The Cloud Pak is an installable program. So you installed the Cloud Pak, you would actually lay down Openshit and then install the Cloud Pak into it. And that would deliver the component libraries, application services, security services, user experience, operational services, data services, all managed by a Cloud Pak orchestration layer. And then within that, you can then install and deploy the IBM Enterprise software capabilities. And the Cloud Pak, when it provides a level of automation to do the deployment of the individual technologies within. So you can go in and spin up a new environment very quickly. So it accelerates your time to deployment once you've got it all set up and running. And it's an opinionated stack. It allows you to, it brings with it all that's required for monitoring and management and reporting and logging and things like that. Whereas if you were to go and build your own, you would have to incorporate all these things yourself. But the other way of looking at it is it's also a bundled set of license entitlements to IBM middleware. And the installable program it's a mix of open source and proprietary capabilities, which creates that opinionated stack I referenced. The installable program is only supported on Red Hat Openshit because it relies on the Red Hat Core OS. So Core OS is an immutable operating system that lives under or underpins Red Hat Openshit. So when you're implementing a Cloud Pak, you are implementing 2 other things really. You're implementing Openshit, but you're also implementing a new operating system with Core OS. So now we understand a little bit of what a Cloud Pak is. What about the deployment options for the Cloud Pak? So I can choose to deploy the Cloud Pak with all the software operating within it on Kubernetes, on Openshit, or I can deploy the program entitlements within it. So all the different assets that I have that are within there, I can deploy them wherever I want, on public cloud, private cloud, traditional cloud, or virtualization. So it gives me choice, and it could be a mix of both. If you looking at the Cloud Paks, and you've been encouraged in that direction, moving to Cloud Paks is really about moving to containers. Where is your organization on moving to containers? Do you have a defined strategy around containerization? And to move to containerization, that needs to be supported by a microservices strategy. And to make best of a containers deployment, or to make a containers deployment work, you have to have a robust DevOps process and the associated tooling in place. Do you have that? That's a big project in itself. Is it aligned to your cloud and hybrid data centers, or your hybrid strategy, or even your data center strategy? Maybe it's a data center exit strategy. And does moving to containers align with that? Or are you moving to native cloud services? Where does it fit? And transforming your development, deployment, delivery and management model is a huge change to the business. So, are there sufficient business drivers to do this? And really, what is the benefit of the future state? So a lot of the Kubernetes and DevOps style cultures were driven by the large cloud vendors, people like Google, who were delivering cloud at an unprecedented scale, and they needed to take out the time it takes to spin up and grow new environments, and to grow and contract, expand the contracting environment based on demand. At that scale, it makes sense. But for your organisation, does it make sense? Big part of this is going to be skills. Do you have the skills to do this? And then, of course, what are the potential costs? How long is it going to take? And what will the growth be in terms of compute and therefore the license entitlements? It's important to understand Kubernetes from, I guess, one kind of a fundamental point that Kubernetes takes an application or an application environment and breaks it down into you break it down into components and deliver those components as containers, which means you can grow and contract those based on the requirement or the loads. But it means that you've got more containers. So one application can become lots of containers. And then there's the concept of quorum. So quorum is high availability in the Kubernetes world. So to achieve quorum, you actually need 3 members in a cluster as a minimum. But really you need more, perhaps 4, maybe, depends on the workload. But that's in comparison to a traditional high availability architecture that most organisations would employ of a 2-site cluster. So you're immediately growing your infrastructure requirements and your processing requirements. Let's look at the bundled entitlements. So we've talked about program having or the Cloud Pak coming with these bundled entitlements, but there's a very complex model that sits behind those bundled entitlements. So all based around VPC metrics. But if we look at App Connect Enterprise, for example, to run one VPC of App Connect Enterprise actually requires 3 VPCs of Cloud Pak for integration. So it's not a one-for-one. You can see the level of complexity that is going to arise when you come to doing your license management and license auditing. Some of them also have limitations. So, for example, Aspera have limitations around the licensing because the deployment can only be into OpenShift. But you can take these ratios and you can deploy into traditional infrastructure as well, but you have to be mindful of these ratios. So what are the considerations around licensing? Well, no doubt you're going to be offered a cost-effective trade-up to the Cloud Pak. So does this reduce, remove or increase the entitlements to the individual programs? Think back to that entitlement table. Where does it leave you? Is it a net gain or net loss? And how does ILMT interpret Cloud Pak bundles and the ratios? And does that do anything to reduce the admin for the ITAM or SAM teams? Then how do you manage and monitor the daily high watermark? So this is the concept that because Kubernetes grows and contracts, or its own automated healing meets the demands of the workload put upon it. So there's a measurement that you take daily on the high watermark. What was the largest deployment level we had during the day? And these are the figures that you report back to IBM. So with this in mind, how do we then manage that consumption and regulate the compliance? Then you have to consider what's going to be the right strategy for your licensing model going forwards, because IBM's strategy is to upgrade you to a subscription model. In this model, you'll actually no longer retain your perpetual license assets. So once you stop paying, the service will be turned off. So you're only paying for term effectively when you move to subscription. And as the estate grows, which it will if you think back to what I said about quorum, which model will yield you the better ROI? How would moving to a subscription model impact your future choice? With a loss of your perpetual license assets, the system would turn off once you stopped paying for the maintenance. So lots to consider in moving to Cloud Paks, and hopefully now understand a little bit more about what's under the cover and what that might mean to your organisation. I thank you very much for your time.